Okay, welcome everybody. Jeff and Alexandra, are you both there?
Yes, and I'm so happy to be back. How are you, Herbert and Jeff?
I'm doing well. You had a 3-week vacation, traveled Europe and New York, right?
I did. We went for 2 weeks to Europe, France, Germany, Italy, and then to New York for the graduation of our youngest. So next month will be the first month where I'm not paying any college tuition fees. I cannot tell you, after 5 kids and I don't know how many years I paid my ass off. Sorry about my English, but it's been a long time. So yeah, I am enthusiastic about it all.
I'm glad you're back. A big day today. We have quite a number of new information that we received from Elon Musk's interview. Let's go through all of them today. He was interviewed at CNBC, and he was also interviewed at the Qatar Economic Forum. And let's start off with the information he dropped for Robo Taxi. He said that it's on schedule to launch next month in June, that they've already been testing thousands of cars 24/7. And he said that they've essentially no interventions in a test fleet. He clarified that there's going to be 10 cars on the road for the first week. Then they'll get to 1,000 robotaxis in the next few months, expanding to San Fran and LA. They will be driverless with no safety driver, and likely will have a remote driver at the very, very beginning. He said, caution is so critical, and that he will deploy it in a geofence kind of model, safest part of Austin, no intersections. I mean, those are just some of the things he said. He also, said that the end of 2026, he predicts there'll be hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million autonomous Teslas on the road. And things are going to happen slowly, but then all at once. He also said that there's a number of major automakers have reached out to license Tesla FSD, and the more that it gets developed, the better it will be. And just so many. Let's start with that. Jeff or Alexander, who wants to start first? What was your thinking about the information he just clarified here?
Jeff, you go.
Hey, welcome back, Alexander, and welcome back, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
As well. I mean, not that he was.
You see how we do this?
He could. Yeah. I mean, it's not like you said. We've talked about this. It's not like. But he even said, I was spending a lot of time, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on politics. He was very clear. He was asked that multiple.
We just lost you, Jeff. Are you back?
Majority business now. And I think that's good. I think if you're an investor in the company, I mean, he's clearly in a mode. You talk about demon mode in the book. He talks about various modes he gets into, and he's clearly focused on rapidly advancing his businesses, whether it's Tesla and getting this Robotaxi rollout to be flawless, whether it's SpaceX, whether it's, Boring Company or XAI. He's XAI's got this big, gigawatt system training center he wants to build.
Right. Sorry.
So I think the theme is he's back, he's focused. I think if you're betting against the stock, I think he's going to make it a terrible time for you, because if you were betting against the stock before, you had the news media just running amok, 98%, biased in one direction, and 100%, quite frankly, negative sentiment around Elon Musk and Tesla. So you had the wind at your back, and you didn't really have Elon openly responding to much of anything. He's focused on setting up Doge. But now you've got, he's clearly focused on the business, and he's one post away from, either a major announcement, a major event, some sort of progress as it relates to the business. He was very clear about the sales in the business, very clear about, a number of things. He was very clear about the Model Y transition. We've talked through this. That was, again, another FUD talking point that, if you want to take just one dimension of data and report it and then not look at the whole thing, that's not what real professionals do. That's not what real analysts do. That's not what, but that's what was happening. So he clarified a number of things. He's focused, and he reiterated everything around Robotaxi. And if anybody's ever launched anything new to the market, something that's never been done before, the thing you don't do is you don't put millions of them, blindly out there day one, whether it's, some brand new form factor of a smart, the first smartphones, they weren't out there in mass quantity. There was a very careful, slow ramp up. If you remember even the first iPhones, it was just tens of thousands in the first couple of months, maybe hundreds of thousands. And then, and now when they ramp, there's 10 million of them ready at launch. So there's a progression for these things. So the fact that one of the key takeaways I think people should have had from this conversation is, they're trying to put a box around this launch of, it's only 10 to 12 cars. He goes, yeah, for the first week. Then he goes, if everything goes well, we'll add another batch the next week, and then it'll grow very rapidly, and it'll be thousands of cars. Because right now you have hundreds of robo taxis from the other vendors. I don't think anybody has many thousands yet. And I think Tesla, like you said earlier, Herbert, there'll be many thousands of Teslas available in pretty short order. And I think that is going to be, I don't think you're going to have this big epiphany so much, whatever week they launch in June. I think it's ultimately going to be when they're just everywhere and there's nobody in the car. I mean, that's the big thing. When I use Smart Summon today and, have the car pull out and, go across the parking lot and there's nobody in it, people turn around and say, wow, there's nobody in that car and it's driving. I tell you this, if you live in a big city today where there is Waymo, I think, you're getting used to seeing these things, but I will tell you 99.9, percent of the US is not used to seeing a car driving itself. And these Teslas are going to be ubiquitous and you will see them everywhere. I think it's going to be a special thing. I wish David Faber would have been able to ask him, okay, what release is in these cars that have, basically zero interventions. It'd be great to understand if there's a brand new model that they've been testing. So yeah, just a number of things, but ultimately all convergent on Robotaxi, Optimus, autonomy, and Elon being focused and back in the business, back onto the business, 100%.
Yeah, it's getting real. What do you guys think about the details that he shared, though?
Before I get to details, I want to point out something about the shelf life of sentiment and news. Elon worked for Doge from end of January to end of April, 3 months. And that is now 3 weeks ago because we're now May 20th. He's back for 3 weeks. And the whole Doge discussion has completely disappeared. And I just want everybody to learn this lesson. Whenever there's this pain point where people are like, oh my God, what's he doing? He's not focused. He's not whatever. I mean, Tesla is his baby. And I mean, there was never a doubt that he was still co-managing Tesla besides everything else. But it was a 3 month period. And the people that freaked out had no perspective on it, that it was for a good cause. It only lasted 3 months. It's been 3 weeks ago and the whole thing is gone. It has evaporated. The whole topic does not exist anymore. And I think we should really, remember this when in a couple of weeks there will be the next horrendous story, Twitter overhang. I don't know what else it is, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that sometimes it's good to go on vacation because you sort of, step back, because what has happened in these 3 weeks that I'm gone is really this complete change of sentiment. It's now the FUD has risen a lot, and when the FUD rises, we always know that Tesla is getting to the next milestone, right? The competitors are not stupid. They know what's happening. They know what's in the books over the next couple of weeks and short months, and with that the temperature rises. So when you see that, and when you see at the same moment Elon's presence, I mean, going on 2 interviews in the same morning, I think we haven't had that ever. I don't think we have had that ever. Building up for the proxy. Do understand this proxy that's going to come out will have some important things to vote on. And yes, we're important, us 36% retail investors, but more importantly is to win over enough institutional shareholders to get us over the 50% or even 66.6% if we're going for the Class B shares. So there is a real campaign happening. And today was one of the first major dates of that campaign. He's not going on CNBC because he loves Faber. No, he's going on CNBC to convince institutional investors to continue believing in him, in his vision, and that he needs voting rights, that he's then there for 5 years. Reassure them, but also make sure that they are aligned with what's going to come in the proxy.
Yeah, in the interview with Qatar Economic Forum, he confirmed he plans to stay at Tesla CEO at least 5 years. He talked about the more important to him than compensation is actually the voting control, and that should give people a little bit more. There's stuff we all know, but sometimes people forget and think that maybe he's going to leave, maybe he won't be. I think it also sounded to me, I don't know if you got this, Alexandra, that the board, he felt very like I did not get the sense that they were still working out what needs to happen and that he was still unsure about what the future is going to hold, despite the appeal not yet resolved.
Of course. I mean, I loved the sentence when he said, I can't speak for the board. This is completely right. And everybody else who's always going, oh, the board is just a clown show. It's Elon deciding everything. No, that's not how it works. You may not see the board. The board is not on X. The board is not running from one TV station to the other. They rarely do. I think I've seen Robin Denholm twice on TV, and it's like, how uncomfortable she is there. So the roles are a very, muted and silent board compared to a very exuberant Elon Musk, but that doesn't mean the board is not doing their role. And in this compensation package that they're building on, which again, I think is installing Class B shares to give him at least double the voting powers of his current 13%. I hope more, but at least double. And maybe laying out the next compensation plan over the next 5 years, milestones again and option allocations again and whatever. So if they're working on that, he's not going to address that on TV. You got to be kidding. I mean, this is something they learned their lessons. I mean, Tornetta 2018 to 2024, and now the appeal was certainly a very painful lesson. And while I have the mic, I just want to make clear once and for all about Robin Denholm's shares. And no, I'm not saying things I've already said. I want to say the following. The board accepted a settlement with this pension fund that the 2017 to 2020 share options they received have to be given back to Tesla. So some of the current sales, not all of them, but some of the current sales of shares, especially when you see more than just Robin selling shares, are the ones where they execute those 27 to 2020 allocated share options to hand them back to Tesla when that verdict becomes final. It's not final, it's an appeal, not on the subject, but on the attorney fees, because Chancellor McCormick gave them too much attorney fees. So she executes, but she's not like cashing them in and buying herself some bags at Hermes. She is giving that money, as are the other board members, back to Tesla sooner or later. The second thing is that once that judgment became official, they agreed to currently not take any share options. So the ones from 2017 to 2020, they're handing back. The ones from 2020 to 2023, they waived, and they're currently still waiving them. So at the moment, and this is now true since 2017, they are not remunerated more than their basic fixed salary, which is, I think, 80,000 for each board member and 200,000 per year for Robin as the chair of the board. So anybody screaming how overpaid they are, I mean, ask yourself whether you for the last 8 years would have worked for that, given that you now have to either hand back or not have at all your stock options. So the stock options she sells and they sell are either from the 2017 to 2020 period where they're selling them to hand them back to Tesla, or they are from pre-2017. Pre-2017, meaning they are 9+ years, and they obviously have taken enormous values. That's why you see these 30 million, because the stock in the last 9 years has taken enormous value. That's just all there is. So I really want to can all these stupid discussions. This is a board that has now for 8 years no options, and they have not decided yet whether they will start allocating themselves options again when the new board member, Patel, the name I can't remember, was appointed. He also said, I don't want even a fixed salary. I'm waiting when the share options are available again. Then yes, but until then he works for free. So please, whenever you hear these people scream stupidly about, how rich these people got, these are share options either because they're handed back or if they are pre-2017 that are 8+ or 9+ years old.
Wow. Thank you so much, Alexandra. That is valuable information that few people even know anything about. And thank you for sharing that for us to get to be more intelligent about what's going on. Wow.
Yeah, it would be good to see, like, after all this, because you go through a lot of stuff, Alexandra, that's just not out there. It's not clear. All people see are the daily Form 4s, and they're like, oh, here's another one. Oh, here's another one. It'd be great if somebody, so, okay, were they paid $500-600 million, or were they paid a third of that? I mean, that would be interesting to.
Yeah, I actually, if I would find
the true net.
Yeah, what I should do is go through all the Form 4s and see when the options were allocated to see exactly which ones are actually going to be paid back and which ones are actually going to be hers. Because for the other board members, nobody has sold anything than those that they have to give back. So Kimball sold at one point some that were really destined to him. But when Kimball sells on the same days then they all sell, it is because it's part of that package to return those options. So but it's a heck of a work. It really is, because
I'm not asking you, but
they sell 15 amounts. I mean, you see those at Form 4s, they're full of details, and I really should get into them.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody wants to help me do that, I'm most happy to.
Maybe Grok can do it. With some sort of auditing.
I tried. They always goes, I'll go back to the SEC filings. I tried that, but I will try again.
Okay. Thank you, Alexandra. That was great. I still feel like the board, I'm feeling very confident. I mean, I'm reading a little too much into it, I'm sure, but it feels like the board seems to have an idea of what they're going to do with Elon's compensation plan. Elon doesn't seem like he's that concerned. So let's get to the Robo Taxi launch. We got Omar and Warren here. Appreciate you both. Omar, tell us what you thought. You heard a lot of details about the launch in June, testing thousands of cars that seem to be virtually no interventions. It's going to be 10 cars at first, scaling rapidly to 1,000 in future, right? San Francisco, LA, geofence, no intersections. What was your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, first off, on the last point, I just want to say it's funny you see so many people posting these takes where they really don't understand what the Form 4 is saying, and it's not really their fault. It's kind of hard to read, but Jeff had a good suggestion. Just take the form and ask Grok, what does this form say? And you'd be amazed how much more clear it makes things. In a lot of cases, like, for example, where they're giving back options, there was actually no sale on the market at all. They weren't selling the options at all. The options were just being returned to Tesla and destroyed. So a lot of times people, I would hear people say, oh, so-and-so sold their shares, but no, that's actually, not what the Form 4 says. Or other times it'll say, okay, they sold this, but it was actually part of a prearranged plan. So Grok can help a lot with things like that. Regarding the interviews today, I mean, yeah, here we are in 2025. Autonomous driving is really kicking into high gear. We're very much in the scaling phase now, not the how do we make the technology work phase. So that's very exciting. Waymo today announced that they've now completed 10 million driverless rides. And you hear them talking on CNBC. First off, you see the transportation secretary in Gigafactory, Texas, talking about autonomous vehicles and talking about a national federal standard for autonomous driving. Not state by state, but a federal standard. Get approved once, run everywhere in the country. Music to my ears, right? This is what I really wanted to hear from the transportation secretary. And to see him talking about it at Tesla after riding in a vehicle with FSD, I mean, it just doesn't get any better than that. You saw really this narrative this year that Elon's involvement in politics would destroy Tesla, that everyone would hate him so much, no one's ever going to buy the cars anymore, and it's the end of the company. And I think Elon put it well in the interview. He said, look, there's some pros and cons. When you get involved in politics, yes, on one hand, there's going to be political opposition and they're going to try and attack you. And that can impact you negatively to some extent, sure. But on the other hand, you're now having close conversations with the transportation secretary, not just in Austin, but in DC. You're now aligned on crafting federal policy that allows the company to scale out. And I think it's increasingly clear that on net, sort of getting involved in politics, having a more friendly administration rather than one that maybe wants to make an example out of Tesla, it is really going to be absolutely material to Tesla and their scale out of Robotaxi in the United States, probably far more than, any sales impact from protests or anything like that. So seeing him there and talking about a federal standard, very exciting. In addition to that, they asked him, well, isn't NHTSA investigating? And he said, look, these are kind of routine investigations. We're doing our job, but, we really want to enable this kind of innovation. So that matters quite a lot. If we can go from a state level regulation to a federal regulation, that's what really lets them take this technology mainstream.
Fantastic. Well said. Can you talk about the Robotaxi launch and the details around that?
Yeah, so we got some additional details about the Robotaxi launch. They're going to be sort of dipping their toes in the water. A lot of people were disappointed by 10 to 20 cars, but he said, look, we're talking about the first week here. If things go well, we're not seeing any problems, we're going to rapidly expand to 10, 20, 30, eventually thousands of cars. So Waymo has about 100 cars in Austin. And if they're really scaling at the pace that he's talking about, yeah, they could have more driverless cars than Waymo in Austin by the end of the year. And he's talking about expanding to Los Angeles, expanding to San Francisco. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done, both regulatory and technical, to achieve that. But, they don't intend to keep this as a small service for long. They tend to expand very rapidly. That's their intention. And when you understand the technology, you understand the fact that the Waymo has to be, you have to buy the car, take it to the factory in Mesa, outfit it with the sensors. They have a capacity of maybe a few thousand a year, maybe at full capacity, 10,000 vehicles a year or so. Tesla's already making more than 1 million Model Ys that they're going to be using in the Robotaxi service. So as fast as they want to scale, there's no limitation on, what the Mesa factory can produce. Waymo's in a situation now where they've got about 1,200 Jaguar I-Paces on the road. They have 2,000 more they've taken delivery of from Jaguar. That's their final delivery. That car isn't being made anymore. So going forward, they're going to have to move to this new vehicle. If they want to expand past 3,500 vehicles, they're going to have to move to the Zeekr RT. So there's quite a few hurdles there. Compared to Tesla, manufacturing is not a bottleneck for them. The only bottleneck is really the performance of the software. So there's a good chance, I think, that Tesla actually has more cars in Austin than Waymo within a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, welcome, Warren. I don't know if you were awake because I know you're in Thailand. Did you watch these couple interviews?
I have not seen the interviews yet. I just wanted to comment on the point about the Zeekr. Zeekr is a Chinese EV brand, and from what I can see, and maybe Omar knows more about this, the Zeekr RT is a fairly large, several passenger minivan type vehicle. That Zeekrs are expensive in Thailand. You're talking about probably a $70,000 car, if not more. Maybe they can, if Waymo buys it in volume, they'll sell to them for 60, but it's not targeting the same approach that Cybercab is approaching. Cybercab is let's make a large volume of small vehicles. And, Waymo, I'm surprised that Waymo didn't figure out, hey, 2-passenger vehicles might make a lot of sense if we're going to have self-driving. So maybe they just don't think they can make a vehicle without a steering wheel and make it work because their software isn't good enough.
Mm. Yeah, I'm very happy with what I heard in terms of the details. I'd rather Tesla take it easy, take it slow. 10 cars, like you said, he said scaling rapidly to over 1,000 cars in just a few months if rides are successful. Because, as you just said, Omar, I mean, the scaling part is not going to be the hard part. Elon said it, right? He goes, it's going to be slow, and then all of a sudden it'll happen. And not just city by city by city, but like countries, and they will all chase him, including these automakers that he's already, that they're in conversations with. And I think he made a comment, something like, the closer we prove that this is working, the more that they're going to need to and want to participate in that. So I think the slow roll is that, and he said it, right? That's most important, is go slowly, and then it'll just all happen really quickly, all at once. Boom.
If I could just comment on the international prospects.
Yeah.
There are countries that will resist. India is famous for taxi mafias in certain cities,
Right.
and like Uber can't operate. Japan is going to be an interesting case because in the cities, the taxi companies have a lot of political power, but there's a lot of rural areas where because of their depopulation, there just aren't enough taxi drivers, and it's hard to get a cab. Thailand, I don't think there's no organized entity that represents taxi drivers. I don't think there are any large taxi companies. I could be wrong about that. But once you get outside of Bangkok, I would guess that there might not be a lot of resistance to Robo Taxi. But then the price of a human driver, this is the other thing to be aware of with Robo Taxi. The price of a human driver in Thailand or Malaysia or Vietnam, and probably, for more than half the world, the price of a human driver is so cheap that even Cybercab might not be that competitive.
Sure. What did he say about Uber? Didn't he say something like, "There's no need for Tesla to buy Uber"?
Yeah, so I think first off, we don't necessarily need to worry about India or Thailand right now. If we can get it working in Austin, Texas, I think that's great. I think Waymo has proven that you can actually be successful launching your own app for a driverless car. I don't know if you guys saw, but within Waymo's San Francisco geofence, they've now overtaken Lyft to become the number 2 rideshare service. They're second only to Uber now. And I wouldn't be surprised, probably won't be long before driverless rides overtake human-driven rides in San Francisco. And I think Tesla's probably going to help with that. But yeah, I don't think they need to buy Uber. I don't think they need to buy Lyft. I think you can actually get people to download a new app so that they can experience driverless. You want an app that's really well integrated, where you can control the Tesla's climate, log in, control your settings, have it really be integrated into the vehicle. And I think they're going to do a great job with their own app. So the service is going to be limited at first, and it's going to expand. The number one goal is just don't fuck this up. Don't crash. So they're going to start with, about 10 cars. Morgan Stanley had a note out. They said they expect it to be an invite-only service at first. We haven't heard that from Tesla, but maybe they have some information from the company that is making them believe that. It is going to be limited in terms of where it can go. You won't be able to just say, hey, take me to California or even take me to San Antonio. Obviously, they're going to set a boundary where they feel it works well. Like Waymo, it's going to pick the routes where it knows it works well and where the data supports that there are never any interventions. So there'll be, your standard limitations there. It'll be kind of similar to how Waymo works in many ways, and allow people to do kind of an apple to apples comparison. I think the most interesting line from the interview, which I think most people don't quite understand, is when the interviewer asked him, is it going to be as good as Waymo? And he said, I think it's actually going to be better. And you can actually see this just riding in a Waymo here in Los Angeles and using FSD. With FSD, the ride is just smoother, more human-like, less robotic. And I think people are going to see that when they compare the two services head to head in Austin. The Tesla not only drives better, but it runs on an ordinary car rather than one that has to be specially outfitted for autonomy.
Now, I want to point out, I think the international rollout, it's not just India and Thailand. There's going to be massive political resistance in many countries, European countries right now, that the government, and I want to be clear about this, it's in the interests of the people in all these countries to have Robotaxi roll out. But for a variety of reasons, including, an ideological alignment against capitalism right now in like Europe, in Canada, I think you're going to see massive resistance, political resistance to the rollout of Robotaxi. I think that you will see widespread adoption of Robotaxi in the United States and China, and those are the two largest markets in the world. So there's a lot of room for Robotaxi to expand in the next 3 to 5 years before it matters. But expecting European governments to suddenly decide they like technology, I mean, I think Mark Andreessen had an interview not long ago where he said, 80% of what robots are going to do is already illegal in Europe.
Yeah.
So I think people should be aware of that.
I agree, but I'm old enough to remember how London resisted Uber for a long, long time, and then suddenly it broke. And the main argument from Tesla is actually safety. And I don't think those governments can really make for a long time an argument if the cars are safer than human driving.
I think the bigger argument is economic prosperity. I was one time at work talking to a bunch of Philips medical employees in Denmark, in Germany, and what they were saying was, when Europe has to act like a bloc, right? That fights against, China and the U.S. They have to be as big as those two. If both of them have robots and they both have autonomous driving, the economic prosperity is so advantageous for them that there's nothing that Europe can do. They'll have to join in, and they'll have to take advantage of it. It's the same thing that I've been hearing about states saying that if one state accepts robo trucking but the others don't, those factories in your state that does gets a significant advantage because transportation is a significant price to the margins of companies that exist there, and they'll have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really fight technology ultimately. It's like fighting gravity. So there may be drama in many of these markets, but it'll happen over time. Autonomy will be everywhere. But I'm not even worried about that right now. I'm just focused on this first launch. When you look at what's happening with Tesla FSD, just the videos we've seen in the last week, they have a dramatically differentiated technology here. 16 years in, Waymo's working in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Austin. And they're going to start in Atlanta later this summer. They're going to do DC and Miami, a handful of cities in the US. Even most of the US doesn't have it. Meanwhile, look at the videos the Tesla AI team has been putting out, showing off the car driving around the Arc de Triomphe in France. We saw our first right-hand drive FSD videos from Australia. That opens up a number of markets that are right-hand drive. So what we're really seeing with this software is that the pure vision model, the lack of the mapping requirement, is allowing it to scale much faster, I think, to new markets than any other self-driving system has. And as these markets get FSD supervised and start using it, they're going to start understanding that FSD unsupervised is possible and updating their regulations as well. So really from a tech perspective, those videos, the Australia video, the France video, the other video we saw in the Netherlands, this is really a superpower that they have with this model. And you noticed it was really adapting to those local driving customs. So for the Arc de Triomphe in France, someone mentioned that in a roundabout, you always have the right of way once you enter the roundabout. But for the Arc de Triomphe, the rules are a little bit different. You're supposed to defer to people who cut in front of you in that roundabout. And the Tesla was handling that properly. So it's this weird edge case of roundabouts in one country, but the model's able to adapt to even that. Then in Australia, they showed off a hook turn. A hook turn is really specific to Australia, in particular in Melbourne, where they have these trains that are running through the middle of the street. So when you want to make a right turn, which is kind of like making a left turn here in the United States, you're going across the other lane of traffic. Rather than going to the right, you go to the far left and you wait, and then you make the right turn. So this very kind of local behavior, you would think this generalized model that's trained on data from all over the world might not be able to handle long tail sort of local behaviors like this, but they're demonstrating that the model actually can. So this, I think, is really important for investors to understand as we get into the scaling phase of autonomous driving and try and figure out who's going to be able to take a share of this market.
You do such a good job. Thank you, Omar. Wow, you explained that very, very well. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.